Hello, public opinion aficionados, and welcome to Rasmussen Reports, where you get unbiased poll results, plus all of the explanation and analysis that others won't give you, directly from the pollster's mouth. And today, the topic is the swing state of Arizona. It's a really important topic. It's basically the king of all swing states. And to be honest with you, it's had some problems. We all know about the issues in Maricopa in 2022. But then there's the ongoing saga of the investigation into the 2020 election. And you may not know this because it probably wasn't reported on your mainstream media news channel, but Arizona is the only state where there was a real forensic audit conducted on the 2020 election. It was approved by the Arizona Senate. There were a group of over 1,500 volunteers that donated over 100,000 hours of their own time to review 2020 ballots. And what they found, according to the official Arizona Senate report, was pretty horrifying. Hundreds of thousands of potentially fraudulent ballots with a whole slew of issues like perfectly filled in ballot circles, and not least of which was the fact that many of those ballots were printed on unofficial paper stock. You know, there's a certain kind of paper you're supposed to use for elections. Some of them were basically printed on copy paper. Now, if you're interested by any of that, we recommend that you look it up. But today, we're here to talk about our Arizona poll that we conducted just last week of 750 Arizona likely voters. And there's a lot to cover here. Now, unfortunately, what you're going to see in this video is just a very trimmed down set of the crosstabs. This is like basically 1/3 of the poll. It's really rich. So if you want to look at all those numbers yourself, there will be a link in the YouTube video description. So check it out for yourself. But on to the numbers, and we're going to stop in first with Biden approval. Biden had a 43% approval rating in this poll, which is a little less than he's doing nationally. He's at 45% right now. And that's kind of elevated since the Trump guilty verdict, but he's been in the low 40s pretty much all year. His Democrat approval rating in Arizona is really high, 79%. Very low for Republicans, obviously. And 76% of Republicans strongly disapprove of the job Joe Biden's doing. And independents are at 42%, which is basically in line with where they are nationally right now. But the numbers you are all here for is the 2024 hypothetical rematch between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. And this is what we call a two-way matchup. Biden's only getting 40% of the vote, Trump 47% for a really strong 7-point lead. 9% say some other candidate, 3% say not sure. Now, if you've been keeping track, this is just about as big a lead as Trump has had pretty much every time we've polled since the 2020 elections. It's been the upper single digits. And that's kind of crazy considering how close the final reported results of the 2020 election were. Right now, it looks like it's an insurmountable lead, but we all know the issues in Arizona. And also, as a point of reference, we did have Trump up 3 points, basically at the margin of error in October 2020 going into that election. A quick look at the crosstabs show that Trump is absolutely crushing it amongst men. This is, almost a 20-point lead, but he's losing by 3 points among women voters in Arizona. He is at 7 points with 18 to 39-year-olds, and his biggest lead is with middle-aged voters, and his lowest is with 65 and older, but he's still winning by 6 points. He is winning by a huge amount among Hispanic voters, like, 24 points compared to only 6 points he's winning among white voters. And here, unlike the national picture, Donald Trump does not have as much of a crossover lead as he had before. He's doing 2 points better among voters of his own party. Only 7% of Republicans would vote Biden. 10% of Democrats would vote Trump. So that's 3 points, so that's a 5-point crossover advantage. And he is tied among independent voters, 39 to 39. That's also starkly different than the national numbers, where Trump is leading in most polls that we run by double digits. But here is the 5-way matchup, and Trump actually does not as well. He's winning here by only 4 points. So Biden loses 3 points of support. Trump loses a pretty astounding 6 points of support. And most of that is now going to Kennedy and not sure. So 17, 18, 19, 20, 20, 21 points here in the non-Trump and Biden responses, whereas it's only 12 points here. So some of that is just the difference in how voters respond to this question. And it looks like in this poll in Arizona, giving people more choices makes them less sure about the outcome. Similar picture in the party numbers as well, but here all of a sudden, Trump is down among independents and is only taking 29% of the vote. Well, here, 17% of independents said some other candidate, but 16% here go for Kennedy. Plus you have, Jill Stein and Cornel West. And I thought this would be interesting to add here too. Here's the lead by how likely people say they are to vote in the 2024 election. Trump is leading, but it's only by 2 amongst those who say they're very likely to vote. But Trump is winning quite a bit amongst somewhat likely to vote, which is a sign that Republicans in Arizona probably should be looking to increase voter turnout. Now, the stuff going on with Kari Lake and her new Senate race has been pretty fascinating. So we're going to get into that now. The first question is just a quick check-in on the GOP primary. And amongst independents and Republicans who say they're likely to vote in the primary, Kari Lake is just absolutely crushing it over Mark Lamb. She's up almost 30 points. I don't think there's any way that she could possibly lose that race. And this is pretty in line with the results we had back in February. But on to the Senate picture, and right now she is down 3 points against her Democrat challenger, Ruben Gallego. This is a reversal from where we had the numbers in February. We had Kari Lake up 3 points in the head-to-head. Now, both of these results are basically at the margin of error. It's about 3.5 points for this poll, but our contacts in Arizona also did say that the Gallego campaign ran a massive ad buy. The word they used was carpet bomb. But into the demographics here, and Kari Lake's winning among men, but losing huge amongst women, losing amongst 18 to 39-year-olds and middle-aged voters, but is tied in the 65 and older age bracket. Losing 2 amongst white voters, 3 amongst Hispanic voters, and a stunning 18 points. This is mostly black voters. She is doing worse amongst Republicans than Gallego is amongst Democrats. And she's losing independents by 15 points. But the good news for her is here are the 3-way numbers. Now, this is quite a bit different from last time because Kyrsten Sinema decided to drop out of the race, and she was taking about 20% of that poll. But now we have Arturo Hernandez, the Green Party candidate. And in this question, Kari Lake is now down only 1 point against her challenger. And so I would essentially call this a neck and neck race. Hernandez takes 4%. Looks like it's mostly hurting the Democrats here. And checking in on party, Gallego is down 9 points from the previous question amongst independents. So that's where Kari Lake's pickup is coming from. Now, we could go column by column through all the demographics for each of these questions and probably draw some conclusions, but probably the easiest way to look at this is to compare Trump's lead over Biden, which I have in this row here, versus Kari Lake's lead, or perhaps lack thereof, which I have in this row, and then see where she has the biggest difference versus Trump. So Trump is doing 10 points better amongst all likely voters than Kari Lake is doing in Arizona. Now, it's important to point out that we've seen this trend in pretty much every swing state. Donald Trump outperforms the Republican candidate by anywhere between 5 and 10 points. And I'd love your thoughts in the YouTube comments about what is driving that. There's a lot of potential reasons. Maybe it's he has more name recognition. Maybe it's just that people don't trust non-Trump Republicans as much as they trust Trump. Trump has built up quite a bit of credibility and goodwill as far as getting an agenda done goes, and Republicans, it's fair to say, probably have not as much. So more red here is worse. Kari Lake does worse amongst men than Trump does, and also worse among women, but not as much as men. Her best age group is 65 and older. Her worst is 40 to 64-year-olds. She's doing really bad with Hispanic voters, and that might be an opportunity area for her. And she's actually doing almost as good as Trump amongst other race. This would be Black, Native American, Asian. And by party, she's actually doing better than Trump amongst Democrats. So she has a little bit more cross-aisle appeal. but she's doing significantly worse among Republicans. And I have a ton of demographics here, which we're not going to go into all these. Sorry. You can look at them yourself. We also had a question here that we asked of Republicans. Do you consider yourself a Trump Republican or a traditional Republican? And this one, although it's still a majority Trump Republicans, did have a bigger proportion of traditional Republicans than our February poll. So that could be one of the reasons that Kari Lake is underperforming a bit here. But let's get on to the other important parts of this poll. And what is important to Arizona voters? And overwhelmingly, 28% is the economy, although that's lower than the last time we asked at a national level. I think it was 32%. Number 2 is border security at 23%. Add them up, and it's a majority of 51%. So half of all Arizona voters care about basically the best thing for the Trump platform, which is border security and the economy. Add violent crime, and you're up to almost 60%. What I call the basket of progressive issues, climate change, abortion, I guess you'd call this one national security, that's under 30%. So really the issue set does play into the Trump platform. Now, again, not getting into all of the demographics here, but the number one issue amongst 18 to 39-year-olds, it's not abortion, it's the economy. Same for middle-aged voters, but for voters over 65, it's border security. Hispanic voters, number one, 41% is the economy, but believe it or not, they're number 2 at 19% is also the border. If you look at Republicans, the economy and the border gets you to 68%, add violent crime, and you're up to 76%. Independents, though, it's also 53%, the economy and border security. Only 17% of independents care about abortion most. And even among Democrats, it is their number one issue, abortion, 27%. I don't know, maybe I thought that number would be higher, but only 19% of them care about the economy. So I guess they're just doing better than everybody else right now. So since we're talking about the economy, here's a new question we've never asked before, and the results are pretty interesting. In the last year or two, have rising prices caused you to significantly change your spending habits? And 70%, 7 in 10 of Arizona likely voters say yes, 27% say no. Look at that 18 to 39-year-old number, though. 79% of 18 to 39-year-olds say yes. So Biden-inflation really has hit them pretty hard out of their own mouths. If you look at the party numbers, 83% of Republicans say yes, but 67% of independents, 2/3 of independents, say that rising prices have caused a change, significant change in their spending habits. And 59% of Democrats, so less than them, but still a pretty strong majority. Now, the other issue was the border. So here's a new border question that we just asked at a national level. If given a choice between two candidates, one of whom favored granting amnesty to all illegal aliens, and one of who favored deporting all illegal aliens, which candidate would you vote for? And a plurality say the deport candidate, 44%, only 35% say the amnesty. The 21% not sure is kind of surprisingly high here. But what's interesting to note is even though deport wins, it doesn't win by as much as it did at a national level. At a national level, it had, a really clear majority. It was winning by double digits, I think almost 20 points. Democrats say amnesty, but, it's 56% of them. But Republicans pretty clearly want a deport them all candidate, 71%. Independents, unlike the national level, go for amnesty here, but only 38% to 34%. Hispanic voters go amnesty, but only 45% to 33%. Now, there's some other clear issues that this election could be considered a referendum on. One of them is the weaponization of the political justice system. We did ask a brand new question about that in this poll as well. Some people have accused Democrats of politically persecuting their opponents, like Donald Trump, Steve Bannon, and Peter Navarro. Do these criminal proceedings make you more likely or less likely to support Democrats, or does it not make much difference? More voters say less likely, 37%, than say more likely, 26%. 31% say it doesn't make much difference. Now, it's most important to men, and it's important to all ages, but, less likely leads 12 points over more likely amongst 18 to 39-year-olds. That's a really important age bracket for Biden to hold on to. Amongst race, more likely wins amongst black, and other races in Arizona, but only by 2 points. But look at the party numbers. More likely wins amongst Democrats. We use their name quite a bit in that question, but only 49%. 13% of Democrats say less likely. Now, among Republicans, there's the same 13% that say more likely, but 60% say less likely. But the important number, again, is remember, in that two-way, Trump and Biden were tied amongst independent voters. But here, independents are showing a pretty clear signal that they do not like this kind of political persecution, and it would make them less likely to vote for Democrats. And then, of course, there's our favorite issue, the one issue, well, two issues that we ask about that nobody else will. One of them is obviously the vaccines. The other is election integrity. How concerned are you that cheating will affect the outcome of the 2024 election? And it's a really big number. 60% are at least somewhat concerned, 33% very concerned. But here's the tough number. Only 17% of the Arizona electorate is not at all concerned that the outcome of the upcoming presidential election is going to be affected by cheating. That number is horrifyingly low. Now, believe it or not, in Arizona, even with the issues they've had, these are actually a little bit less than the national numbers. You can check it out in our latest video where we just hit a record 66% of all U.S. likely voters being concerned that the outcome of the upcoming election is going to be affected by cheating. 40% of them were very concerned. Now, I put the demographics up. You can just, it's a majority amongst every single one of these. Even Democrats, 54% of Democrats are concerned. 74% of Republicans are concerned. 47% very concerned. And even 52% of independents. So my recommendation to legislators in Arizona is that a majority of every political affiliation in Arizona is concerned about cheating. Maybe you should have some bipartisan actions to improve the security of your elections there. But here's a brand new question, and I thought, let's just save the biggest mind blower for last. In recent elections, have you or anyone you know received more ballots than the number of registered voters at your address? And the answer is 15% of the entire electorate in Arizona either receive more than one ballot at their address or know somebody. Now, the actual number of people who receive them isn't going to be 15%. It's probably going to be a number smaller than that, but the number's not going to be zero. And so this just fuels increasing concerns that elections in Arizona maybe are a bit of a mess. And look at this number I highlighted. 26%, more than 1 in 4 18 to 39-year-olds in Arizona say they or someone they know got more than one ballot in the mail. Don't you think this is a pretty fascinating trend? One that might actually provide some possible support for a hypothesis that this is being done intentionally and targeting certain people? I don't know. That's just a hunch I have. Look at this. 3 in 10 Hispanic voters say yes. And 20% of Republicans, they're probably more sensitive to this issue, but 14% of Democrats and 12% of independents even say. So this isn't just people making it up. So what are the major takeaways here? Well, Trump is crushing it in Arizona. Kari Lake is probably in a neck-and-neck dead heat race, probably needs to spend some more money on ads, and there's probably some demographics in these numbers which she could focus on more and improve her turnout. The number one issue in Arizona, far and away, is the economy. So that should be the message if she wants to win and if Trump wants to do better. Now, the border, even though it's the number 2 issue amongst all voters, is probably a little bit more complicated. I would have thought the signal would have been higher because Arizona is a border state. But to me, it looks like these results are a little bit more muted than the results of all U.S. likely voters. Oh, and what's the other takeaway? They should probably work on making their elections better. If you have any thoughts on the contents of the video or you have any questions you'd like to try and have us run in future polls, please post them in the YouTube comments. While you're at it, like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and follow us on Twitter at Rasmussen_poll. You can also hit me up at Mark_R_Mitchell. And thanks for watching.